What's going on? Sorry, having a little fun over here. You gotta get your groove on every now and then, don't you? I mean, please tell me you're not just sitting there being boring all the time. Sometimes you got to get moving. I got no moves. Hey, everybody. Hello. Glad you are here on the Book of Face or the Tubes of You, wherever you may be. Hey, Pam. Good to see you, Pam. I hope that your surgery went well, Pam. I know you had surgery today, so I hope that all went well for you, as well as something like that can go well, but you know what I mean. So pray that all went really, really well for you in that. Glad to have you on here. Glad to see all of you that I can see that are on here. Carla, Frank, Alan, Bob, Jamie, Kelly, all you people, my wife. I know there's other people, but that's all I can see. And so, like I always say, if you're here, I like to know you're here. Let us know you're here. Have an interaction. Makes it much better for me because I know who I'm talking to. Also, remember to like and share the video, comment, and because the algorithms have sort of changed a little bit, what I know is that the more you interact with the video, the more that social media pushes the video out there. So the more you click the little like button, the more you click the little heart, the more that you click the little huggy care thing, or heck, you could even click the angry response. Like, I'm mad at the fact that this exists. The look, Marcus's face just makes me angry. You can do that also. I don't care. It will put it out there into the internet land, even by you clicking the angry button. And so just interact with the video as much as you can, as much as possible. When you hear something you like, click the like. When you hear something you don't, click the angry button. Actually, because of the chat feature that I'm using, and because of the way that it's set up, I can see you commenting, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, but I cannot see if you've liked or if you're angry. I know one week Jamie accidentally clicked the angry button, like she was mad at something, but she wasn't, and I mouthed her about it for a while that night. I actually can't see any of that. I just have a chat window that lets me see both Facebook and YouTube simultaneously, and I can type and say things that I just typed. It went to both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So please do that. Push it out there. Share this so your friends will see it. There's somebody who maybe needs to hear what we want to talk about tonight. Somebody that needs some hope, some encouragement. Maybe somebody that just talking about Scripture versus everything else that the world is talking about, that in and of itself would be an encouragement. So please do that. And don't miss an opportunity when you do that. This is good. We're online. Anybody can access it. We're here. But it does not replace. It can never replace presence and being present with one another. And what we do on Sundays in worship, being present with each other, that is what we were made to do, to be with each other, worshiping God. In fact, in eternity, that is all we will do. We will be with one another, worshiping God. And so invite people to church. Jamie invited 400 people to church on Facebook this week. Go for it. All right. And I know people that need hope. They need help. They need healing. They need something that only Christ can offer them. And so don't miss that opportunity. All right. That's my commercial. And I'm sticking to it. Other thing that's happening here. Next Wednesday. Let me hold on. Let me do something here. I'm gonna fix something there. All right. There we go. There you go. Boom. I got you, Mal. I got you. It's fixed. Sorry, when I switched to the picture, it changed my audio. So, yeah, Michael, I know there's no video. That's on purpose. It's not frozen. So next week, we will have in-person worship. And so be here for Ash Wednesday as we give something up to grow in our dependency on Jesus. But people, the technology is it's amazing. I can just do this. I'm not froze. There's no freezing. It's a photo. Okay. All right. So that's what I'm doing. So don't worry. Everything's fine. We got it. And then don't forget, if you're a lady, that this is happening starting March 2nd on Tuesdays in March. We grow together, where you ladies get to hang out and be with each other, first of all, but get to hear from one another and get to hear stories from one another, get to hear testimonies from one another, and really that's how you grow together. I always say about being in college, I learned more when I left the classroom and then went and sat with all of my friends and talked about the thing, processed those things together. And that's kind of the idea here, is talking through and processing what God is doing in your life with one another. So that starts starting the March 2nd, which is the first Tuesday in March. Talk to my wife. If you have any questions about that, there's not really a sign up because there's not a cost involved or anything like that. But let her know you're coming. Just talk to her, let her know you're coming. And I'm sure that she would greatly appreciate that. See, look at that. Boom, I'm back. I wasn't frozen. We're all good, guys. We're all good. I appreciate your deep level of concern there. And there it is. I did have the audio because I have it set to where when I switch to that setting, it mutes my audio. That's just a little thing. Everything's good though. Nothing froze up. Nothing was problematic. I have good internet. In fact, I'm plugged in to by Ethernet here, and so if it starts going bad, we got other problems. So, all right. Let's go here. 2 Chronicles. Maybe it's you, Mom. Your internet at the house is not good, Mom. And I say that when I go to the house, the internet, the cell service, it doesn't. A lot of times it doesn't work super well, depending on where you are in the house. And so, it could be yours, as I know I've had no problems streaming anything today or looking anything up or anything like that. So 2 Chronicles tonight we're gonna get at. By the way, I have to say this. So me and my wife went to Costco the other day, and just, if you haven't been to Costco, it's like the difference. I mean, Target, the difference between going to Target versus going to Walmart, I mean, there's a difference, all right? There's clearly a difference. But the difference of going to Costco from going to Sam's, it's an even bigger gap. Like, it's just pleasant. At one point, my wife said, listen, she said, stop, listen, do you hear that? And, and I was like, what? And she's like, exactly. It's nothing. It's not crazy sounding in here. And you can tell the stuff they have, it's a little bit nicer in a lot of ways. And there's this pack of like, I don't know, 16, 20 ramen things they got. But this was not top ramen. This was not the ramen in a cup. This was not Maruchan or it wasn't any of that. Not that 32-cent ramen. This ramen it was Shin, I believe. I think it's Shin is what it's called. Actually, I can tell you. Yeah, it's yeah. See, yeah. Nongshim. It's a little bit fancy, if you can call ramen noodles fancy. I'm just gonna tell you, I had some today. Next level on the ramen. Next level. Didn't feel like I was just eating like a load of salt, and it felt like it was real food. I'm not saying it was, just felt like it was. So if you ever get to go to Costco, get some of that Nongshim ramen. It's where it's at. That's neither here nor there. I just wanted to give a shout out for the Nongshim ramen, and a shout out for Costco because, man, that place is awesome. All right, I'm gonna do something here. My camera is not where I want it to be. There we go. I was going off the screen a lot there. All right, so 2 Chronicles 5, as we've been going through this on Sundays. Yes, Dad, you're in. And, Dad, if you're on YouTube at the house and Mom is on Facebook at the house, that could be why something's freezing up on one end. So, again, if you have any questions, anything that you were wondering about from Sunday, anything that came up, anything that you know stuck in your head, I want to hear about it. I want to know. I want to know what those are. I want to be able to answer, respond to those questions, those thoughts you have. And if you have any other questions, I know a lot of you are reading through your Bibles. If you've come across something and you went, wait, what the heck is that? Or you know, man, that's real interesting. Throw it down in the comments. Please, I want to hear about it. I want to be able to respond, help you out. And so please, drop those in. This is a great time to do that. And, you know, a couple weeks ago we veered off course and didn't talk about 2 Chronicles at all. We talked about something completely different, and I'm all down for that. So if you have anything, put it in there and we will talk about it. Your life needs something if ramen needs to be rated. I agree. It's sad. It's sad, Dad. I mean, what else do I have after 2020? I got my fancy Nongshim ramen now. Okay, like just leave me alone. All right, I'm making it. Oh, by the way, big thank you to my dad. We had a couple of downpours earlier, and not like hard rain, but hard enough rain that one spot in the foyer that we had a little bit of a drip in after we had repaired the roof. There was another spot we couldn't find where it was coming from, and I have seen 0 leaks so far. So shout out to you, Pops, for that one. Big, great job there. Also, if you are a teacher and you've been sitting there in your classrooms every Sunday thinking, A, man, it's kind of cold in here, and B, I hope a kid doesn't touch that heater and burn themselves, they spent most of the day today back there working on the thing, and unless I am mistaken, we now have heat. We now have heat. That's right. We have heat. And that is something to party and celebrate about. So those are my random announcements that have nothing to do with anything. Just want to let you guys know about that. And like I said, drop your questions in the comments down below, and be bold with them things. Be bold with them things. We will talk about it, and if I am confused, you get to see me squirm and not know how to talk, which is I don't know. Anytime it happens, my wife is like, "What happened? That never happens to you." And so hey, it'll be entertaining, at least for her. so yeah, like I said, I want to hear those things. I want to know what those are. If nothing else, it's good to hear from you guys to say these are the things I'm thinking about. These are the things that stick with me. These are the things God is showing me. These are the things that I'm trying to learn, but I don't know about. Can you help me, Pastor Marcus? So do that. Before we start, I do have something I want to correct myself from Sunday. I got real smart sounding and spoke Hebrew on Sunday, and I have no problem. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything wrongly that I said, but I said some things in the wrong order, or added something into a particular verse. It's sort of like if you misquoted a Bible verse, just any verse. Like, let's say you misquoted John 3:16, but however you misquoted it didn't change the verse. That's sort of what I did in part. I believe, if I could be mistaken. I'd have to go back and listen to it, which I haven't, because, doesn't everyone hate the sound of their own voice on a recording, right? But I was trying to show the Hebrew for that he is good, his steadfast love endures forever, and I think I might have said ki hesed olam, and it's ki olam hesed. If I did not say ki olam hesed, that's what it is. It's olam is the endures forever, hesed is the steadfast love. In Hebrew, they're just they're flipped. And actually in Hebrew, that's how most languages would do it, with that reverse order than English. In English, we would say his steadfast love endures forever. In Hebrew, the olam, it comes, and then the chesed. So ki olam chesed. That's the correct order. Also, on the Psalm 136, I was quoting part of verse 1 and part of verse 2 kind of together in conjunction. I didn't do anything wrong. I just misquoted slightly. And, so verse 1 is, Yada Yehovah Ki Tov Ki Olam Hesed, and Chesed. And then verse 2 is Yada Elohim Yada Elohim Ki Olam Chesed. Like, that's it. There's no for he is good. So it's not ki tov, it's ki olam chesed. And so I think I put the ki tov in the verse 2. You might not remember it. You might not care. I told my wife when I came home that Sunday, I was like, I think I misquoted this, so I needed to correct myself. Yeah. Oh, cool. Thank you, Carla. You listened to it through the car. Oh, we're following through the car, so like through the audio plugged in. Yeah, that's awesome. Glad to hear that. I just wanted to correct that. So it's his steadfast love endures forever is the ki olam chesed, not ki chesed olam. If in case I said that wrongly, and that Psalm 136:1 is Yada Yehovah Ki Tov Ki Olam Chesed. That's how that's worded. And that's what happens when you do things from memory, and sometimes they get jumbled. All right, 2 Chronicles chapter 5, sort of, a little bit. I want to address something shortly tonight, and then, again, if you guys have questions, let me know. And if we don't get to something, we can always come back next week and add it in. And I know some of you are reading through your Bibles, and you're in different places, and maybe there's something that theologically you're like, I don't even know what Paul is talking about there, or you're reading something in the Old Testament and you're like, wait, what's happening here, or this is weird. Drop it in there, or shoot me a message, send me a message even, and I won't tell anybody that it was your question, and we'll discuss it. So 2 Chronicles 5, I want to point something out. I've been, because there's so much in these chapters, so many little historical details and things, we can't get to all of it on Sunday morning, so I want to kind of point out maybe something we couldn't get to, something we missed, something that maybe deserves more detail than it got on Sunday. That's what the pattern we've been kind of following, and I'm going to keep doing that. here. And so in 2 Chronicles 5, which is what we talked about, the Ark of the Covenant gets brought into the temple. The thing that is sort of representative of God's presence with the people. All right. The thing now here's the problem: is that anything that represents God symbolically, we as humans, God is not tangible. All right. He is real, but he is not tangible reality, at least in the way that we think of it. And so I can touch and feel this desk, this microphone. I can see it and touch it and all of that, but I can't do that with God. And so the big problem with humans is that we take symbols, things that represent something that maybe isn't tangible, and we make them as if they are the thing they represent, if that makes any sense. And so religiously, this is a major problem. So the Jews, obviously, they took something like the temple and the ark, and they have made it as if it is God. So they have almost likened the temple itself to being God. And in fact, I told you guys a few weeks ago about people gathering the elements to be put once the third temple is built, so they can reinstitute temple sacrifice. Except Jesus is the once and for all, the once and for all sacrifice. So there's no need for any more sacrifice. That said, even if they were to do that, and there's a certain end times belief that believes they'll do that, and that's fine. I don't have a problem. Like, I have a different belief, but I don't believe that belief is wrong. It's more like there's room for both of us to kind of have some different ideas there. But that said, the idea is that the temple and the ark and all of these things, these are what make God be with us. This is what makes God be with us, and it isn't. God wants to be in your heart. He wants to dwell in you. As he said in Jeremiah, there will come a day where I will write my law on their hearts. And that day is Pentecost, as there was a new way in which we related to God, and vice versa. And so there's a new modality of our relationship. It kind of changed and shifted, and so they made the temple as if it is God. The temple is one and the same with God. So they would say they don't worship the temple, but all of their actions and things say that they do. And they do this with the ark. The ark becomes everything. And I would say we do this. I mean, classically, Catholicism has done this really heavily by, I've been to Israel, where there is a monastery, I guess is what it is, literally built over the top of what is supposed to be Peter's home, where Jesus comes in and heals his mother or mother-in-law. Brain fart there. Jesus comes in and heals it. I believe it's his mom. And there's a convent, basically a monastery or convent built kind of over the top of that. Literally, like, you can see the structure, and then there's this fancy looking, modern structure over the top of it. Because, they want to, that's where that happened. And there was a period, around the Crusades, where the Catholic Church was doing everything they could to, as they sent crusades, as the Pope sent crusades into Jerusalem, to gather holy relics. There were whole expeditions to gain holy relics, to get wood. They said at one point, we have wood from the cross that Jesus died on. We have the cup that he drank from at the Last Supper. We have, all these different kind of things, as if to say, if I have this, then I have part of God. And I would say we've even, there's even the thing that's taken, and this is something I see as a theological issue. I don't necessarily. I'm closer. I'm not all the way on either end of the spectrum. I think it's somewhere in the middle. But taking bread and a cup, and taking the contents and saying this is quite literally Jesus. This is literally his body and his blood, and we are eating his body and his blood, like he says, you must eat my flesh and drink my blood in John. John 6, but Jesus is talking about something a little bit different than that, and I believe they've taken the symbol and they've taken it a little too far. They've made it too real. And I think we often do that. And I'm not, honestly, I don't mean to pick on the Catholic Church for that. I say that because they're easy examples, but the reality is in our churches, we have these things, the sacred cows, like the organ on the stage that grandma donated. Like, that thing might as well be God. It's not going anywhere. It's unmovable, right? Because, that's what it was. And there's lots of places, the battles, getting rid of the pews and getting chairs. And there's all these things that, I don't care what church you are, we all have those things, right? And Jesus makes clear that none of those things compare, and none of those things should be used to be compared to ultimate reality, which is found in God himself. And so, that said, there are those moments, those markers in history and in time when something is used by God, or a place becomes a linchpin for God to do something incredible, or a person is so given over to the Lord, like the Apostle Paul, that God uses them in such a massive way. And there is special significance. We look at the Apostle Paul and we say, this guy, possibly the greatest impact on the history of the world from the standpoint of religion, other than Jesus, to taking Christianity and moving it to the uttermost parts of the earth. The disciples started that process. Paul really got it going. And we revere him, and we should. We absolutely should. We look at places like Jerusalem, and we see. And I can tell you, I've walked through Jerusalem. I've stood on the Temple Mount, and I'm just going to tell you, there is a different feel in that atmosphere. You can cut the tension with a knife. I mean, you can feel the tension between the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians, and it's a unique place. It absolutely is. Jesus walked on some of that ground, and he stood in some of those places, and it's a very special place. And the reality is that there have been times where God has used different people, places, and things, all of the nouns, to do things, and there's nothing wrong with revering those, remembering those. In fact, if you remember, Abraham comes into the land initially, and God says, this is the land I'm going to give to your ancestors one day. And Abraham stops and builds a kind of an altar there, a stone of remembrance, an Ebenezer, a stone of remembrance. He places it there and builds this thing so that down the line, when someone sees that, they go, hey, Dad, what's that? And they can say, that's where our father Abraham, God told him this was going to be our land, and look, this is our land, and like, that's that reminder. We have those things in our lives where, man, we look at it and we go, man, that's my reminder of that time that I did this, or that time that God did that for me, or that time that great thing happened. Honestly, my friend Dale that just passed away last week, who had been battling cancer for years, 14, 15 years ago, whenever the initial diagnosis, I think it was 14 years ago, he was given about 6 months to live, and that was it. Cancer was everywhere. It was started out with skin cancer, and they did a scan, and it was all in his lymph nodes. It was everywhere, and they gave him 6 months to live. Sent him up to Vanderbilt in Nashville a few weeks later, with those scans, and then to get ones there, and to start the process of what it would take, because they're kind of the authorities on the kind of cancer he had, and he got up there. They did the scans, and he didn't have cancer. He didn't. He was gone. And he said, well, maybe the doctors in Jackson made a mistake. And the guy said, no, I actually know those guys, like, personally. Like, they wouldn't have missed this. And didn't have cancer. And now eventually his cancer did come back in his brain, and there's a lot of tumors, and he fought that for a long time, and just this last week passed away. As two young girls, one's a teenager, one's a little younger. And so It's one of those things though that for a lot of us, for most of us, at our college, at Wesley College, Dale was one of those reminders, one of those stones of remembrance, you might say, one of those Ebenezer's, to say, look what God can do, look what He has done, and so he really was one of those, for all of us, a marker we could point back to and say, I remember when God did that. And I was there. Actually, was there when it happened. Was there when we prayed over him, and then we got the call. I remember I went to Vanderbilt with my friend Andrew for his first surgery, and it was funny. We had Superhero Day at school. Okay, so we had Superhero Day at school, and kind of in a Spirit Week thing for basketball, and we all dressed it up. Instead of dressing up like actual superheroes, most of us made up our own superheroes. So I wanted to dress like a teacher day. I was on the student council thing. They wouldn't give us that. So I dressed like a teacher, and I had this guy, Mr. Lumen, and I was the Luminator. I actually had a friend of mine with the cape that I'll show you a picture that I'm wearing, and it has an L that like the Superman logo, but it's an L, and this guy isn't like a professional artist actually now, and does these kinds of things. And so I was the Luminator, dressed like Mr. Lumen. I have a piece of duct tape on my right here with a bunch of brown yarn because Mr. Lumen had a killer mustache, and he would always tuck his tie into his shirt when he was eating, into his button. So that's that. And Dale came as obviously came as a Miracle Boy. There, that was Dale, the Miracle Boy. So that was way back in the day when Marcus was a little less chunky. But Dale was one of those reminders for us. I have a friend, Joel, who actually at a camp one summer, traveling at this camp for the college, he actually dove into a pool, and you're doing the whole like who can dive out the farthest. And he dove into the part of the pool that goes up to the shallow end. He dove right into it, landed head first, and was paralyzed immediately. My friend Marshall had to dive in and literally pull him out of the water. And otherwise he would have just drowned in there. Marshall pulled him out. I remember Marshall telling me that he told Joel, he said, I swear if you're messing with me, I'm going to kill you. And but Joel wasn't. And when he went to the doctors, they said, basically, hey, if you walk again, you're kind of gonna walk. You're gonna walk. You're not gonna walk right, but you may not walk again. Like, it was a very serious thing that happened. And Joel, if you knew him, he played drums, and our worship band, was a tremendous drummer. He could also break dance. Legitimately, Joel could spin on his head, like the actual break dancers spinning on their head. I've seen Joel spin on his head on multiple occasions. It's kind of he was that guy, and they told him you weren't even gonna be able to walk again. That was in July of that year, and I remember like in September, October of that year, playing basketball with Joel at school. And I remember like guarding him, and I distinctly remember like looking over at him just laughing one time, and he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Bro, you're out here playing basketball." And he's like, "I know, right?" And he has a scar right here. He still has it right here on his neck where they had to do the surgery on him. And I would tell you that scar for him, that scar, every time he looks in the mirror, it's an Ebenezer. It's a stone of remembrance. Like, remember when God did that miraculous thing in my life. And so, we all have those things, those things that are meant to point us back to what we're there for, to point us back to deeper meaning, to point us to true reality. And that's what the temple, that's what the ark, that's what our times, that's what our times of worship are supposed to be on Sundays. That's what I have things all around in my office. If you come in here from India and Egypt and Israel, and all kinds of places, and the Philippines, and I can look at them, and for almost all of them, I can remember when and where I got that thing. I have rocks, I have shells from the shore of the Sea of Galilee. I have water from the Dead Sea. I can point to those spots. I have little cups from where I took communion at the Garden Tomb in Israel. I have a placard that we were given by Pastor Joey in the Philippines to thank us for what we had done and all that we had done there, and working with them and ministering with them and to them. And I look at it and I go, I remember that day. I remember we got that. I have a kind of a medallion kind of thing, and it looks like a banner, kind of a sewed banner thing, but it's really actually something to be worn. Very colorful, a lot of designs on it. This handmade stuff by a Muslim lady that we got in the Philippines, and made by her, handmade from her tribe in Mindanao, which is the southern part of the Philippines. And I remember sitting at lunch at her family's restaurant, and she was telling us, and Edwin and them, have a real good relationship with her, and she's been a great ministry help to them, ironically enough. And I can look at it and go, I remember that. And if I ever get discouraged or frustrated or whatever, I can look over at the cricket bat I have, from people, from students I had one year when I went and taught a class in India by the Bible College for 2 weeks, an intensive course that I wrote myself and all this stuff. And I got this cricket bat because I played cricket with them, and I was terrible. Cricket is not the same as baseball, guys. And I played cricket with them, and I got this cricket bat. They all went and pitched in and got for me, and they all signed and they wrote notes on it, and they gave me a thank you card and everything. And I kept all of it. I have it sitting right over. It's right over there. I can see it, and it's these things that remind me of where I've been, what I've done, what God's done. Also, I mean, to a lesser degree of importance, I have my idol back here, with some tickets, where I got to go see Florida, play in the Final Four there, and I got to see, this is right there, the only game I've ever been to in the Swamp. The Florida, they blocked a kick at the end of regulation, and it was the loud, and then they won it in overtime. And I swear to you, I've been to metal concerts and hardcore. It was the loudest place I've ever been in my life when Rex Grossman completed that touchdown pass and they won that game. It's things, remembrances, right? Actually, this will be interesting. This is a Florida Gator thing. But I got it in Israel. It is actually, there it is. I believe that says something akin to like Gators or alligator, whatever the Hebrew equivalent would be. Now we would call it a Ayamaka. I forgot what the actual name for it is. They don't call it a Ayamaka. It's called something else. But it's the deal that fits right there. She got that bad boy in Israel. Look at that. All that to say, we've all got that stuff, right? We all have it, all right? I've even got, you get photos work the same. Got the picture of my wife here. That picture was taken before we had told anyone we were dating, because, we thought it was weird, considering our story. Didn't want to tell anybody at first. I think we were going to like a Food Truck Friday thing on that, Mallory. I'm pretty sure is what that was. And she looks pretty, and you see the picture, and you kind of go, so why is she with him? And, that's why I was afraid to tell people. I'm pretty sure it's why she was afraid to tell people, like, what are they going to think of me now? That's a long diatribe on remembrances, but the idea is that there are things we have in our lives that represent something deeper to us. The temple, the tabernacle, are supposed to be that in the lives of the nation of Israel. And as we will read this coming Sunday, for anyone from any nation all around the world that would come and they would see and they would experience this place and these people and the things that this God, who he is and how he operates, that the temple and the tabernacle, even for someone not from Israel, should be something that would point them to the God of Israel. That clearly of a representation that they would say, this is different, and I'm intrigued, and I'm interested, and I want to know more. You know, it was supposed to be something that would even point them to actual deeper reality and faith in the one true God versus hundreds and thousands of other gods they could worship, and probably did worship and follow. Now, all that, I say all of that to kind of add in here, that when they bring the ark in, which is a very important thing in what it represents. It's a great moment. You know, it's like when that day comes and I stand on stage and rip the deed up to the church because we've paid off the building. When that day comes, you know, that'll be a very celebratory, you know, massively important moment and symbolic to God's faithfulness in our lives. Like, it's a moment that means something more than we paid off a building. It means that God's been faithful to provide so that we could do that, right? It points to a deeper reality. And that's what bringing the ark into the temple was. It was this triumphant moment, symbolic of, okay, guys, you say you want to be with me and you want me to be with you. This is God talking. All right, well, I'm here. Let's get down to the business of knowing each other, of you giving me your hearts and me giving you all of who I am so that you might be different from the world around you. And that you might be who I created you to be. This is what this moment represents. And they bring the ark in, and something cool happens that we didn't talk about on Sunday that I want to talk about. Something cool happens where it says that after they come in and they sing, "For he is good, his steadfast love endures forever. Kitov kilam chesed." Right? That's that phrase there. The house, it says, the house of the Lord was filled with a cloud, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of God. Now, to kind of sidetrack a little, and I'll come back around to what I really want to get at here. You know, most of us have heard of Bethel in Redding, California, and you say, Bethel, who is that? A lot of songs that we sing are Bethel worship songs, and they write some good songs. Not everlasting love. Jeez, relentless love. Oh, the overwhelming. That's from Bethel, and there's a host of other ones, and great songs. I love a lot of their songs. They believe there was this moment when gold flakes started to come out of the air vents in the building at a worship one night, and they called it a glory cloud. It wasn't. If there really was a cloud with gold in it, it was one of two things. It was either the manifestation of something demonic, or it was some people pouring something into the air vents to make it seem like it was something that it wasn't, which wouldn't put it past Bethel to do that. They have good songs. They are really, really heretical and blasphemous and really theologically off and unsound in so many ways. And they called this thing a glory cloud. Now I will tell you, there are times when a cloud fills an area. When the ark is brought into the original tabernacle when it's built, there's a cloud that the presence of God fills the area like a cloud. When David brings the ark when he gets the ark back and brings it into the tabernacle, there's a cloud that fills the tabernacle. Here, there's a cloud that fills it. They can't stand to minister. It's a glorious moment, and it's just a cloud. It's a cloud. The glory of the Lord filled the place. It was thick. It was heavy. I taught this on Sunday. It was ultimate reality. That reality, when you come face to face with God, man, it's thick. It's thicker than this world. It's more real than this world we experience. And they couldn't even stand. I don't say anything about gold flakes. I don't say anything about weird stuff happening here. What I see is a moment where where there's a cloud, there's some kind of cloudy smokiness happening, and to the point that people, it's so weighty that they must, as Paul would say in Philippians, bow to their knees and confess with their mouths that Jesus Christ is Lord, but here that Yahweh is God. What a powerful moment this is. There's no gold flakes coming out of the air here. There's nowhere in Scripture where that ever happens. Let me just tell you, anytime someone says this happened, okay, and I don't mean like my cancer was healed and you can't look in Scripture and say, well, there was that time that cancer got healed. I mean, like, there's times in Scripture God heals. We know that. He is a healer. He can and does do that all the time. So that's legitimate. When someone says there was a glory cloud where there was smoke and the presence of God and gold flakes came down off the deal there, show me in the Bible wherever that happens. It does not happen. Ever. All right? And if we're talking about the moments when that happens, it is a linchpin moment in the entire history of Israel or in the history of God's people where God's presence is so thick and so real that it forces people to their knees. And it is a historic moment, as far as even in the history of the world. Really, a moment to be recorded in all of human history. It's not something at a worship service at Bethel in Redding, California. That's not a real thing. All right, that's not a real thing. It was either demonic manifestation or somebody was pouring stuff into the air vent to trick people. Unfortunately, there's too many people in the church, Christianity, they're claiming to be ministers of the gospel, and they trick people all the time. I wish that wasn't so, but they do that. But here, this is something real, so real that the people can't even stand. And one thing that I find interesting, and I'll hit on this a little Sunday, is that as we read in chapter 6, what we find is that as God, as Solomon prays and he blesses the people and he dedicates the temple and everything, all that's going on in chapter 6, the beginning of chapter 7, there's a fire that comes down from heaven and consumes all the offerings that are put on the altar that we talked about on Sunday, thousands and thousands of these offerings, right? And so we have a cloud filling the temple, the presence of the Lord, presence of God, and fire coming down and consuming the altar. And so we have this cloud, and we have this fire and cloud and fire, and for me, it harkens me back, if I could use the word hearken. In 1 Kings 8, we're told of the same thing where Solomon dedicates the temple. And it says the place was filled with the house of the Lord. A cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud. And so it says this, though, just before it says, there was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets of a stone that Moses put there at Horeb, where the Lord had made a covenant. This is important. The Lord had made a covenant with the people of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. So specifically mentions this place that God made a covenant when they came out of Egypt, and then says there's a cloud that fills the house of the Lord and they can't stand. Now what happens in Exodus after the Lord makes that covenant, after the Lord brings them up out of Egypt, and they've now left Egypt and they're headed toward the Red Sea, they cross the Red Sea, they're wandering through the desert, they're doing all that. What happens? How do they get from place to place to place? Well, during the day, there's a cloud that follows them, that leads them, that guides them. There's a pillar of cloud, and by night there's a pillar of fire. There's cloud and there's fire. There's a cloud and there's fire. And this isn't to say that clouds represent the presence of God or that fire represents the presence of God. In this case, a cloud and a column of fire represented the presence of God. What I believe the writer here in 1 Kings and then in Chronicles is trying to remind those who would be reading this later on And I think he's trying to point out that the idea God is trying to tell a story here, and God is trying to remind his own people of how he's been present down through the ages. He's been there for everything. And so at the dedication of the temple, there's a cloud that fills the temple, and there's fire from heaven that comes on the front end of the back end. And any good Jew shouldn't be able to miss the correlating reality, the correlating symbolism to say, oh yeah, when we, as the writer of 1 Kings points out, when we were brought out of the land of Egypt and we came to Horeb or Sinai, that's Mount Sinai, and we made a covenant with God, from that point on, God led us by cloud and by fire. And we knew God was with us because all we needed to do was look up and we saw the cloud and we saw the fire, and God was with us. That was that reminder. God never let us think that he wasn't there. Like anytime we worried or we wondered where is God, we need only to look right in front of our faces, and there was the pillar of cloud or the pillar of fire, and we were reminded that God was with us. And here at the dedication of the temple, I love that the writer in 1 Kings he specifically mentions in verse 9, in chapter 8 verse 9, that there was nothing in the ark except the two tablets the stone of Moses put there at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with the people of Israel when they came out of Egypt. And just like what happened when they came out of Egypt, there was cloud and there was fire leading them, reminding them that God was there. This was really him. And so one thing we know is that God, when he operates, God doesn't reveal himself in ways that don't make sense to us, because we're dumb, all right? We need simple things, okay? So often when you see angels appearing, they appear to look like humans, but angels have no physical form. It's just, that's something we can understand and relate to. When Jesus, God in the flesh, okay, he comes to be with us and walk among us. He doesn't show up as some 3-fingered, 12-eyeballed, alien-looking creature. He comes as one of us. He is one of us. Right? God operates within the world that he created. He operates in ways that somewhat makes that okay. They make sense to us in the sense that I can look at Jesus and say that's a human. Now, to know that that's also God, that's mind-blowing. But God comes to us and relates to us and speaks to us in ways that he knows we can understand, we can relate to, that makes sense to us. That we can at least say, yeah, that had to be him. And so God is, if God's nothing, he's consistent. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. All right? His character never changes. There is no shadow of turning with thee, as the hymn says. There's no other side of God. And so God led them by a pillar of cloud and fire in the wilderness as they came out of Egypt. At the dedication of the temple, where Moses at the dedication of the people to God at Mount Sinai, their covenant, the Mosaic covenant there, and Moses brings the tablets of the covenant down, and they put them in the Ark of the Covenant. And here the Ark of the Covenant is brought into the temple. The Ark containing those tablets that were carried around in the Ark, that were led by a pillar of cloud, by a cloud by day. And here, God shows up and a cloud, a thick, heavy cloud, an unmistakable cloud, a cloud that cannot be overlooked or looked past or misunderstood, a cloud where everyone could look and say, that's the presence of God. And later on in beginning of chapter 7, there's fire that follows this. The fire that comes from the Lord. That there's cloud and there's fire. God is reminding his people, remember, hundreds of years ago, generations ago, when I brought you out of Egypt, and I was faithful to keep my promise to you. The promise I made to Abraham, I was faithful to keep that promise to you. Remember that? And this is God saying, hey, remember the cloud, the fire? Remember, I'm a God who keeps my promises. I'm the same God that was with you on Sinai or Horeb, the same mountain, I'm the God who was with you there on Sinai. I'm the God who brought you out of Egypt. I'm the God who brought you into the promised land now. I'm the God who has given you all that you have. I made a promise to David, and now and a subsequent promise to Solomon, the same exact promise he made to David, that if you follow me and you walk in my ways, then it will go well with you and you will live long in the land. And just to remind you and prove to you that this is really me, and I'm here, and I am with you. What is the one way that I always reminded you for a whole generation of you who walked around through the wilderness? What is the way that I reminded you that I was there with you? Well, it was by cloud and by fire. And God does that, at least in part here, and he'll do it at the beginning of chapter 7 in whole. Well, there's a cloud here. God saying, I'm here. I'm with you. I'm present. And the idea, just like it was in the wilderness, is quite simply, now what are you going to do about it? I mean, so boldly, I'm here. You said you wanted me. I want you. I love you. So I'm here. Now, what are you going to do about it? Is this all this is going to be? You had a grand celebration. You had a good big moment here, all right? Everyone's happy, all right? We're having a good celebratory moment because, a lot of us are good at the big things, but we're not good at the small things, and I'm kind of one of them. I struggle at the mundane. I'm great at the big moments. I struggle in the mundane. My wife is great in the mundane. Great in the Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. Like, she's a rock star with that stuff, and I'm awful with that stuff. And what God's saying, though, here, he's saying, in my relationship with you, he says, I'm here. Now, what are you going to do about it? Is this all it's ever going to be? We're going to have a big celebration, and then we're going to go our separate ways? I'm going to be, you think I'm going to be sitting here in this back room in a box, and you're going to go off and do whatever you do and worship other gods and go after other things? Is that all this is? This is God's way of reminding his people, I am the God of gods, the Lord of lords, the King of kings. I have been with you since the beginning, and I want to be with you until the end. Here is the reminder that I am who I say I am, and I'm the one who keeps my promises. No other God can say that they've kept their promises the way that I have. So stick with me. And the unfortunate thing is what happens is that Israel doesn't. And they don't because of their leadership. And we'll talk about that a lot more when we get to chapter 7, kind of the path that really hardcore begins to go down, and why. But really they don't because of leadership. And what do they forsake God for? Those tangible, touchable, experiential things. The things they can touch and see and taste and smell. They trade a God who they can't touch and see and taste and smell in a literal fashion for things that they can. And this tremendous, powerful moment, this cloud, the presence of God, reminding them that the same cloud that led you in the wilderness, that was me, and I'm the same God here, the cloud that fills the temple as you bring the ark in. And the people said, this is awesome, this is amazing, mountaintop moment, right? And then this day ends, and what we find is that Solomon, his heart is divided, and he begins to build places of worship for other gods, for his wives that he's married that he shouldn't have, and so I think that those moments, we have those moments in our lives, those stones of remembrance, as I call them, that those times where we look and we say, man, remember when God did that? Remember when I cried out to him? And so often we do that, and then we walk away, and we forget about it, right? We go on about our lives, we live however we want, and we sort of expect, like, it's okay, I had that time where I prayed to God and we're good. Or I got that time where I got baptized and we're good. I had that. We remember that moment where something happened, but we expect it to just kind of carry over and wash over all the time we've spent away from God and rebelling against God. And all the time we spent saying over here, yeah, I love Jesus, and over here not living or acting at all like we love Jesus. Because really, according to Jesus, I don't care about what you say if it doesn't line up with what you do. They have to go together. They have to. And if you say, if I tell my wife, over here, I love you, but I never do anything that shows her that I love her, she's going to say, but do you really? Because there's got to be some action to those words. And so God here's the thing. Our God, he has no problem, never hesitates to remind us of all that he's done in our lives. He shows up time and time again to remind us, hey, remember me? Remember when I did this for you? Remember I'm the guy that keeps my promises? Remember how I this, that, and the other? And I have a list a mile long, 100 miles long, of specific moments in time where God showed up, specific people he showed up in my life. And I even have things, and I have them all around my office here, and I have some at home that I look at and I go, that was that thing God did. That was that time. That was that deal. And so we have these. I had lunch. Me and my wife did with my Old Testament professor from college, Keith McGehee, who actually came and spoke, preached a couple of sermons last summer? No, 2 summers ago. Because last summer was the Rona summer, right? The summer of Rona in 2019. And when we were in Exodus. And got to go have lunch with him, and my wife got the whole history of all of Wesley College. I'm sure she was just like loving that. It was sort of interesting and boring all at the same time, I would imagine, for her. But at the same time, I'm sitting there, and there's a guy whose house I lived in who I drove, got up at 5 a.m. For a very long time, and drove to the coast with him every Sunday morning. Sometimes Saturday night, but most times Sunday morning at like 5 a.m. to go to church on the coast where he was kind of an associate pastor, a teaching pastor at, and I went down there with him for a long time. I lived at his house, and there's all these moments where Keith and me being together, it's a moment in a way for both of us. It's that we can't help but talk about it because I remember when God did this. I remember when God did that, and you can't help but recount those things because when we are with each other, and there's a bunch of us that are like that from Wesley College and my college and seminary days, but like we're with each other, and you can't help but go back to those moments because when you see that person and you begin to talk to them, you begin to go, you're the one God used to do this, or remember when we were together and this happened. And for all of the history of Israel to this day, a good Jew can point to you when the glory of the Lord filled the cloud, filled the temple, and the priests couldn't stand. And they expect that when they build the third temple, and they dedicate it, and they bring the instruments of the temple in, I think they believe that's going to happen again. I don't think it's necessary, and I think that's a conversation for another stream. But they can tell you to this day that happened. They remember it. They have it memorized. They know right where it happened in history. And I know you have those moments in your life where God 20 years ago showed up in that cloud, and 20 years later he showed up in another cloud. He showed up to remind you, I'm still here. I'm still with you. I've got you. Now will you trust me? Will you continue to walk with me, or are we just going to do this cloud thing every now and then, and then you're going to walk away? And I would tell you that Israel destroys itself because they have the big cloud moment, big fire moment. They have that moment, and then that's all it is a moment. It's not a life. It's just a moment. And so God's calling out to you today, live in that moment. Never forget that moment, all right? But take that moment and use it to push you and to motivate you to live every day like that moment it's happening. To live every day, to live every single day, like to remember, when I go, is God still here? To look back and go, man, I remember playing basketball with my friend Joel who shouldn't have walked. Man, when I see picture of Dale's girls, Jillian and Lydia, that they weren't even supposed to know their dad, and they got 14 years with him. To look at my cricket bat over there and say, hey, remember when God did that? To look at the chessboard, the glass chessboard I have over here in my office that's from my pastor, that was my pastor my whole life, basically, until, what was it, 9-10 years ago now, and something like that. Steve Pearson, it was always in his office. Steve loved to play chess, and I have a chessboard there, and that reminder. Hey, I wish Steve was here. Tomorrow I tell my wife all the time, I wish I could ask Steve something. But that reminder of like, I can do this. Like, God's shown up. I look at a set of Matthew Henry commentaries, individual books, not one commentary, but individual, which would be very expensive to buy today, that I got for free because when my grandparents passed away, they had them, and I got them, and I look at them, and I use them actually all the time, very regularly. And I can look at them and say, that's my grandparents' books, and it's that reminder of even despite all that God did in that time. And I have these reminders everywhere. And when I look at a picture of my wife, it's no clearer than that from the biggest, ash heap that could ever exist in both of our lives, God brings beauty from the ashes by taking, a crazy, awful thing and putting us together, which is weird, and I wouldn't have chosen it, but, God knows what he's doing. These things are everywhere, and so the question is, am I going to just live in that moment and then walk away from that moment and forget it happened, or am I going to take these moments and these reminders and say, because of that, I'm going to live every day for that. I'm going to live every day remembering that if God has been so faithful and taking care of me to this point, then the least I can do is to serve him, to love him, to be faithful to him, because he's proven he's going to take care of me. Why am I looking for anything else in life to take care of me? He's proven he's always going to be there, and he's always going to be faithful. And I've got reminders left, right, and center in my life of that. And so I'm sure you have them too. And what I'm encouraging you in tonight, that where there's life is found in looking back at what God has done and then taking that and saying, because God did this yesterday, I'm going to walk with him today. Because if he took care of me yesterday, even though there might not be a cloud that fills the temple today, like, that doesn't mean God is any less with me. And I know when I need it, and when that moment comes, when the right moment, when that big moment, that linchpin moment in my life comes, there's going to be a cloud that fills it. There's going to be a cloud that leads me, or fire that leads me. God's going to show up, and it's going to be so clear and obvious and tangible and real, and God is going to lead me, and I'm going to have another moment to hold on to when I need that. And in between those moments, I'm going to walk with him, and he's going to take care of me, because I can tell you, he's never not. He's never not. I tell my wife all the time that I can never, ever, ever logically, reasonably, or with any amount of mental dexterity forget that God takes care of me just when looking at her. Because I look at her and I see all that God did for her, and I think, like, how could I ever forget and ignore? And so take those moments. There's life in those moments, and use those moments to motivate you to live all the other moments for the Lord. And I can promise you, he will take care of you. All that you give him, he will give you so much more back, because the scripture tells us we can't outgive God, whether it be in our finances, in our time, in our talents, anything. It doesn't matter. We can't outgive him. And so give him everything today, and he will show up when you need him to. Scott Pintard's testimony involves God speaking to him and saying, go to church today. And we baptized Scott this last summer, right? Right? I mean, whoa, right? Like, that was a cloud filling the temple moment that led to a walk, a daily walk, that now it's a time that you remember, but it has motivated a daily walk. And that is what your life should look like. And when someone says, why are you walking this out daily when it's so difficult and it's so hard, you can just look at them and say, because I have 100 reasons how God has been faithful and 100 reasons to keep going. Let me recount them to you. And so take these days and walk with him. Give him everything, and he will give you everything and then some back. All right? That's how it works. I love that cloud fills the temple. You know, that they bring the ark in. That in the moment when they first brought the ark in, that they had a cloud, that God led them by a cloud, and they bring the ark in, and God fills the place with a cloud, reminding them, if you allow me to lead you, I will never fail you, I will never leave you, and I will always be with you and always take care of you, no matter how tough it gets. So, there you go. There it is. There's my sermonette for the night. It's an interesting little piece there, and again, it'll happen kind of in the whole when we get to chapter 7, and fire falls from heaven, and there's even other places where fire comes down and consumes altars, and there's other stories where that happens too in Scripture, and like I said, God is always reminding us. So I hope that is encouraging in some way for you tonight. I hope maybe you will just think back to the things God has done for you, and maybe be reminded. Oh, you know what? God has really, really transformed my life, and I can point back to these 10, 12 things, 1, 2, 3 things, doesn't matter. And I encourage you to remember those things and take those things and carry them with you the same way the Israelites carried that ark with them all through the wilderness. Carry them with you so as to remind yourself that God is always with you, and live today for the Lord, and he will show up every time you need him to. So there it is. It's 7:50. I hope you are blessed this evening. And I hope you have a good rest of your week, as we haven't had winter all winter, and coming up this week we get to have winter this week, like we get to have our week of winter. So I hope you guys have it okay. I hope you stay nice and warm, and I hope to see you Sunday, and bring somebody with you, invite somebody. We got plenty of space and chairs and stuff spread out in there, so I'd love to see you. And let me know if I can do anything for you this week. Got to see Carla. She dropped by just before we started tonight with a thank you card, for prayers and some things we did for her and her family for her brother's passing. And it was good to see her. Made it back safe from Arkansas. And when Carla's not there on Sunday, right? We miss Carla. And so it's good to see her, and we'll have her back in her normal spot. Telling me when the word therefore is there, we find out what, Carla? We find out what it's there for, right? So, love you guys, and I hope that you have a blessed week, and I hope continue in your Bible reading daily, and show up and be ready to worship the Lord with your family on Sunday, all right? And like I said, if you need something, give me a call. You got a question, give me a call, shoot me a message. I don't understand what's going on here, Marcus. I'll do my best, right? So you guys go out and be blessed this week. And I have enjoyed this, and I will see you guys on Sunday. We're going to jam out here at the end.